Hello, this is Chris Braun speaking, and we're just looking down Laurel Avenue, the street that I live on the street that I live on, and this is where I live, which I am eternally grateful for. I've lived here for 28 years on Section 8 housing, and over in this direction, this is my jasmine hedge that I grew. And this is down the other direction of my street, my neighbors' houses. My neighbors are so great. We had a big party last night because one of them had a birthday. That shows you how tight neighborhood we have, even though these people aren't, as you're going to find out, like me. They're beautiful people except for my upstairs neighbor. That's my car. I'm very proud of my car. I raised the money and some friends helped me to do that. There's my punching bag over there, and there's a holder for a speed bag and my double-ended bag, and so we'll go inside. Now, welcome to my house, and because I've been asked to tell this story, I'm going to do it. And this is my blue door with the Gretchen insignia on it, just so people know what they don't know when they come here, because no one around here knows about Gretsch drums. Anyway, when you come into my house, welcome. And this is the first thing I have by the door. This is a punching bag where I punch, can work out and not make a lot of noise. And this is my Hammond A105. And there's a Leslie 22R over there. This is a great organ. This organ is off the charts, man. I've had it for many years. It's in perfect condition, and it sounds unbelievable. That's one of my Gretsch snare drums, which I'm working on right now. There's another one down there. And here it is, another thing. This is a piece of plexiglass which I use to put in front of the drums for soundproofing, and which I'm working on for recording, you know. There's a picture that somebody gave me in New York, and on the Leslie you see there's a transition. That's my original transition album from when I was like, 10 years old, 14 years old, something like that. And Unity, and that subway map of New York up there is actually from before 9/11, to show you my how caught up on times I am. And coming back this way, this is a very unorthodox way of doing things, but this is I want you to see where I live. If any of my friends back in New York do this, this is where I sleep, I have a record player in here, and a weight bench, and guess who that is? And guess who that is? Anyway, there's a picture of the Brooklyn Bridge. Anyway, I don't want to waste your time. I'll just show you I've cooked every meal for years and years and years in my kitchen, which this is my kitchen. And if you see that wok there, that was given to me by one of my #1 best friends from day one in New York, Jeff Bertolotti. He probably doesn't remember sending it to me, but I use that every night, and I will tonight. And here's the most important thing in my life. Here are my drums. So, if you look closely, I have 4 bass drums here, and I have, those pedals, extension pedals, where I can play them all for different pitches. This is just for in my house. But these black Gretsch They used to all be round badge drums. There's a story behind that drum with a stop sign badge that got left on a car. So in New York, I went into Eppolito's, and the guy just gave me that badge. I didn't even know the difference at the time. I was like, 18 years old. It's another one of my snare drums. And anyway, I've been playing these drums ever since I was 14 years old. And they're truly unbelievable sounding drums. If anybody ever listens to the clips that I put up on my Facebook page, which very few people do, which I'm going to try to change, they would hear not only the sound of the drums, but also the progression of my playing and where I think my playing is at this point. Anyway, here's kind of my recording setup. All the mics, if you see all the mics I have 11 mics on the drums. They go into the intake boxes there. I have all these preamps down here for the drums, and they go into Logic, which is on that computer there. And so, for years and years, that's how I've recorded in here. One band that I was in, which I will tell you about, which was together for 18 years and also made 10 albums. We made them all in here, and that group was together, and it was a really beautiful thing, man, for me out here, in the process of the reason for this video, which is because not only now some friends of mine in New York, one in particular, but some other people have asked me to tell the story of what happened to me, because it is an unbelievable story, and the recovery process, the 34-year recovery process from when I got here in 1989, is truly amazing. I mean, the sequence of events. So I'm going to go sit down over there, and hopefully this is lined up correctly, and yeah, I can also use headphones that was donated to me, and so we'll get started now. Excuse me while I take this impromptu thing to a safe place. Okay, so here we are. Whether you want to be here or not, I hope that you can have the patience. I'm going to talk a little bit about, New York when I got there in 1973, and what it was like, because that was a pretty amazing time in New York. And since then, I don't know about that, but and then after I had to leave. So, my name is Chris Braun. I was born on April 17th, 1953. And when I was 10 years old, when I was 10 years old, I was driving to the beach with my family. And I was listening to music on the radio. It was the Beach Boys, and I don't know why, I just thought I wanted to play the drums. So I talked to my dad, kind of bugged him about it. I'd been playing on pots and pans in my room, and so he got me a pair of drumsticks and also a teacher. So this was at age 10. I'll also tell you at age 10, that I was the president of every class from 4th grade to high school. I was like straight A student. I also was the best athlete by light years. I mean, I could run like, faster than anybody in baseball. My batting average was like 900. I was a ranked tennis player in California at, that young age. And, I was pretty much, all guns and fury, man, and like, when I was 14, that's when I started high school, I guess. I met my best friend, and he was another drummer. His name was Terry Bozio. Don't get excited. Terry Bozio is a very, very famous, drummer, and like, but then, we became best friends. He was also studying from the same teacher whose name was Chuck Brown, who was a very famous teacher, and like, so it turned out all through high school, Terry and I spent like every day together, and we would practice at night. He would eat his meals at my family's house, and then we would go to his girlfriend's house, Barbara, and she would, we would just practice, stick control and everything. And I just found these when I was kind of arranging things. These are like actually stick bags that Barbara made. I could probably sell them for a lot of money because of Terry, but and this is what's for to carry my metronome. Back then, we had big metronomes, right? There weren't the little itty bitty things. It was like a big, metronome, like phones, like a big dial phone, It was a big metronome. And so she made these, and so I used to carry my sticks with these, and I still have them, 68 years later. And I used this one a lot because she did a good job on this one. So anyway, throughout high school, I continued studying from Chuck Brown, and I played in a lot of bands. I was in 2 orchestras, and it was just 3 bands, and hanging out with Terry, and music was really everything. And I'll also say that my older brother, I had an older brother and sister, younger brother and sister, and my mom and dad. And my older brother, was born with schizophrenia, and like it came out at that time, and so that was very difficult for my family, and it's kind of like a time bomb, and all the kids just kind of like left, except for my little brother, who still to this day lives in my family house, which is 5 miles from where we are right now in Marin County, California. So anyway, we got through high school, and I had moved to a different town to go to a better high school for music, and they suggested that I go to this place called Oberlin Conservatory of Music in Ohio. So we made an audition tape. We did one piece. Terry played, drum set, and I played timpani. And then I played some Bach pieces on the marimba and vibraphone or whatever. And so I went to Oberlin for 1 year, and it was a conservatory of music. I wasn't really into classical music, but I went there. Just like the time bomb, in my family. And after 1 year, I didn't like it, and but I could read music so good from Chuck Brown that there was a bunch of percussionists who had graduated from there, and also who were graduating from there, and they were going to start a percussion ensemble which was going to be in residence at the University of Illinois. And, you know, like, so they asked me, you know, to be a member of this group because they needed somebody who could play the drum set and read all the graphic pieces and all the crazy stuff that they did. So, you know, I said, okay, it was a good way to get out of Oberlin. And so I, you know, drove that next summer to Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, University of Illinois, and, you know, they just put me in a room with every percussion instrument on the planet, and I had to learn all this music. And, you know, for the next year I played with Black Earth, which was an honor because, you know, they were like, one of the guys was in the Pittsburgh Symphony, another guy was playing with Lucas Foss, his brother, another guy was in the New Orleans Symphony. He quit. He didn't quit though. That guy, he stayed there. He was going to come the next year. So, and then the fourth player was somebody who had just graduated from Oberlin that year. And so, you know, I mean, these guys were great classical players, and I learned a lot, and, you know, it was what it was. So after 1 year, you know, we went on the road, like, you know, and did things, gave lectures and workshops and, you know, radio interviews, and they were good at getting jobs, and, you know, and so, in Saskatchewan, Canada, actually, it was so cold, my floor tom, the shell cracked, and it's still cracked. You know, I never got it recoated, you know. Anyway, after 1 year with them, I decided I wanted to leave and just move to New York and just play. And, you know, they weren't that happy about that. And, like, but, you know, I was just, you know, it wasn't my thing. So, in 1973, you know, I moved to New York City. And Terry said he didn't think it was a good idea for me to move to New York at that point, you know. But, you know, what was I going to do? I didn't have many choices in my mind. You know, I was set on it, and so I did it. So I got a loft on 18th Street between Broadway and Park. My roommate was someone named Alex Foster, who we had played in the Oakland Youth Symphony together and played in the Monterey Jazz Festival, backing different people like Cannonball Adderley and stuff. And then the next year we played in the Monterey Jazz Festival with the California All-Star Jazz Band. So anyway, I knew Alex really well, and, you know, he's a great he was played alto then. So, you know, we immediately started having sessions there, and, like, you know, I mean, just every day, and you know, different cats, really, really good cats would come over there, and, you know, cats like Jack Walrat, you name it, man, like, different drummers when they would come to town, like Victor Lewis, you know, different guys, you know, would come by, and, like, you know, every day there were sessions, and, you know, so, you know, I lived there for about a year, and, you know, a lot of different stuff happened there, and, as far as musically, you know, and, I was walking down to a club called The Bottom Line, which was on West 4th Street, it was an industry club, to see this girl, you know, and what happened was that you have to walk down the street called University Place from 18th Street to get to West 4th Street. And I went into a delicatessen at the corner of 11th and University Place to get some orange juice, Tropicana orange juice. And there was this big 6'3" black dude behind the counter, you know, and, like, I took a look at him and I was like, whoa, what's going on here, you know? And so I turned around to leave, but he pulled out a pistol, and, I mean, you know, I tried to run towards the door. He came out around the counter. I knocked him down, you know, bam, that was that. And so then his friends came out, like, and one of them had a sawed-off shotgun. And that was one ugly looking thing, man, you know. And he walked up to me, and I just looked at him right in the eye, man, you know, like, what are you going to do? And he smashed me as hard as he could in the head. Caught me right here with the barrels of the, you know, the two steel barrels of the shotgun. And so my brain, you know, the blood spurting out, and I'm just stood there, you know. It was like in boxing, you know, you get a hit with a good shot and you don't fall down, you know, if you got a good chin, you know. And like, I was just probably in shock, but I said I better fall down if something else bad is gonna happen. So like, bam, I fell down and they dragged me in the back room and left with all the money. And you know, they called the cops and, you know, took me to the hospital. And, you know, I had real long hair then. And they, you know, sewed up my head and let me go. And, you know, that was a pretty traumatic experience. And I, you know, I called my dad and mom and, you know, went on with my life. And, you know, after a little while, I moved to 20th Street. But things happened at 18th Street, and I'll just say this really quick. Like, for instance, here's one example. You know, my cats like John Abercrombie, you know, would come there. I mean, the most famous people that in jazz music, like now, were in New York playing then. Okay, that's the best way to describe it. You know, cats like Mike Brecker. You know, like, I mean, my best friend at the time was a guy named Dave Stryker, a guitar player. He's doing, I mean, he just keeps elevating himself, you know, and I'm really, you know, proud of that. And like, you know, drummers, you know, who have successful careers, you know, just all, you know, anyone you can think of, you know. And like, anyway, so like, I moved to 20th Street, you know, into this artist studio for, anyway, Jack came over because John Abercrombie wanted to leave his band, and Rio Kawasaki, another guitar player who I was playing a lot of duo with, asked me if I could use the loft, you know, for this audition, you know, for Rio to audition with Jack DeJohnette, you know. You know, so like, I said, sure, man. You know, so Jack DeJohnette and Dave Holland came over, and, you know, Jack carried his drums all the way up the steps. He said, I'm not going to leave my drums in my car. Are you crazy? You know? And, you know, they auditioned Rio, and also Alex played. And Rio didn't get that gig, but he actually got the gig with Elvin a little while later, Elvin Jones. But Alex got the gig with Jack, because he sat in, and so, you know, that was really great actually for me, because I got to go to a lot of Jack's gigs with Alex, you know, and kind of get to know him, man, and just get to hear him, like, you know, so up close, you know. And like, I mean, I was, you know, and, you know, he'd come off the bandstand and like, oh man, I couldn't play anything. And I would be like, whoa, you know, because, you know, that's one great drummer right there. And like, you know, he was, you know, there were a lot of cats that, a lot of cats in New York that were great drummers. And, you know, I could go here every night, you know, which I did. And, you know, like Philly Joe, you know, would be in town a lot. Even around the corner at the Cultural Center. I mean, that Barry Harris's place. Yeah, that was on 8th Avenue later on. Okay, so I moved to 20th Street in this place, you know, for one summer. You know, same thing, a lot of sessions, met a lot of cats, Schofield, you know, a lot of different people up there. Used to go and sit in at different places. This was the time of lofts in New York. And, you know, there was in the Lower East Side, there was a guy named Jolie Wilson who was a singer who had a place called the Ladies' Fort. And I used to go down and play at Jolie's place because I knew people there. And like, you know, after that summer I met this other drummer and I moved into his place on Reed Street, which is down by the World Trade Center. And, you know, it was another place where you could play and like, so, you know, it was the same thing. This was like, you know, Joe Lovano, all the guys from Boston, you know, Billy Drew, Steve Slagle, Steve Grossman. I'm naming mostly tenor players. It's weird, my memory, you know. And like Sam Rivers, I remember came there. And this great bass player, I became really good friends with, Dennis Irwin. And Kenny Warner, a piano player, I remember vividly some sessions with these guys, you know. And I mean, really good sessions, you know. Anyway, Todd was living there. That was his drummer with his girlfriend, and as it goes, I hooked up with his girlfriend. So that means we had to get out of there. And Benny Wallace was another tenor player who I played with a lot there. And Benny is someone to look up for you on the computer. But Benny was totally unique, man. He was almost like the Eric Dolphy of the tenor saxophone. I mean, he had so many things happening, like, you know, on the horn, overtone-wise, and like, you know, just the way he played, interplayed. He's from Tennessee. And so, you know, I mean, here I was at my age, you know, 19 years old, you know, playing with all these like totally heavy cats and like, you know, just learning like by the minute, you know. And so Andrea and I had to move out of there. That was the girlfriend, Andrea Levine. And she was a really, really good dancer and a really, really good tap dancer. Okay? You know, she was just like a monster tap dancer. And we moved to we kind of stayed around a little bit, and then we moved to 72nd Street and had an apartment there with a bass player named Dave LaRocca, who, like, you know, there are people you just have memories of that will always be, no matter how bad life gets, be a source of strength. Dave LaRocca, if you see this, Dave, man, what's happening, man? Don't worry, man, I'm killing him, man. And like, you know, you too, man. You know, anyway, he lived there, and we did a lot of work on cruise ships at that point. And, you know, Andrew would stay by herself. And over on the East End, you know, there were some other guys who were, you know, from 18th Street, a guitar player named Barry Finity, who I knew since I was like 10 years old, because he grew up here. And one of the greatest guitar players, you know. I will say that, you know, I respect Barry's playing. And, you know, he played a lot out here, and we played a lot in New York. And Mike Wolf, a piano player who was Alex's best friend, you know, who, again, was remarkably successful in New York. Played with people like Nancy Wilson, Cannonball Adderley. Even Alex actually took Cannonball's place when Cannonball died in Cannonball's band. And Mike Richmond, a bass player who, again, played with in Jack's band, played with a lot. I mean, this is a great bass player. I mean, you know, listen to him, man. Go to the computer. That's the modern day age now. You know, the the big dial phone isn't here anymore. You know, you can look at your little stupid cell phone and like, bam, there it is, right in front of your face. So you got no excuses, man. You know, these names are the people who like, you know, and at that point, you know, people like Joanne Brackeen, I mean, you know, the names go on forever. So, but you can, the names that I mentioned, you can, you know, go to YouTube or find them all on a computer, you know. And so they all had a place over on East End, and my first gig in New York was actually at the Playboy Club. And so I went into the Playboy Club and worked there with Cameron Brown as the bass player. And you know, at the end of the night, the owner of the Playboy, the owner comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, where'd you get that Portuguese tuxedo?" Which was another way of saying, don't ever come in here again dressed like that. You know, because it was like, you know, I just threw something. I didn't have a tuxedo, you know. And like, but that was cool. I actually worked there again, you know, and like when I had proper clothing. And, you know, there was a piano player named Sadiq Hakim, or Argon Thornton, who was Charlie Parker's piano player on 52nd Street, who Dave LaRocca and I actually went on the road with him. And we used to play with Sadiq a lot, and I played with Sadiq, you know, all the way until he died. And, you know, I mean, not like Barry Harris, you know, he played more modern tunes too, you know, but Sadiq could really play, and I mean, also I really, as a person, you know, it's just, you know, unbelievable. And I was really, the last time I saw him, man, he was getting high on the corner, and I just walked away. I'll see you later, man, you know, and, you know, that's life. And so, hey, you know, moving on, Andrew and I then got ourselves a loft on 27th Street between 6th and 7th. And this was a big, huge loft. It almost went all the way to 28th Street. And it had a wall dividing it in half. And so the back we made into a dance studio for her. And, you know, like I sanded all the floors and fixed it all up. And I built a soundproof room there. And I bought a Hammond organ from a friend of mine also who needed money. And like a great organ player. He played with the Whispers when he was 10. Bob McCormick was his name. And I worked with him in the Catskill Mountains a lot. And, you know, he used to come over and play. We wouldn't play bebop. We would play like, you know, what he played, you know. But he was as funky as they come, man. And, you know, it was just like, he had a real drinking problem, and, you know, an example being, you know, he would put the vodka bottle in his coat pocket with a straw, like Philly Joe, and he was into candy bars, you know, and he would do a lot of other drugs, and I wasn't into drugs, you know, I was just a little kid. I just had my cup of coffee or apple, you know, that was me. And, you know, I dibble-dabbled around. There was a drummer named Jeff Williams who I knew from Oberlin, who grew up there, and he was in a band called Lookout Farm, which was Dave Liebman's band with Richie Byrack and Frank Tusa, and that was a whole other world. And I used to go out to dinner with them every night, and, you know, they'd dress, and like, you know, Dave Liebman was with Miles and with Elvin, you know, around that time, and you know they were real hot shots, you know, like, and like Richie, you know, he had his own harmonic thing, which was really amazing. Like there's some records on ECM that, like, you know, Richie really he was a really warm person to me, you know, and all of my little friends, we all studied from this. Like, my best friend took lessons from Frank Tusa, who lives out here now in California. And, you know, Jeff and I used to hang out every day. and we'd play duo. You know, he'd play piano and I'd play drums, and we'd kind of play like, you know, impressions and all that kind of stuff. And like, so look out for him, you know, and that whole scene was a really big scene. And I will mention a place, because I'm trying to my very best to be authoritative, because what I know here, Dennis told me I should make a documentary. These guys in New York want me to write a book. Other people want me to write a book. If I could write a book, but I'm not going to write a book because I don't have the goddamn patience to write a book. I'm too busy practicing, man. You know, every day. You know, 4 or 5 hours a day. And like, you know, when you find out why, then you'll understand. So, moving on, I got a job in a bookstore, actually, Weiser's Books, because it was first Richie's girlfriend, Gail, and there's a song Richie wrote called Gail, which, switching gears, there's a record called Distant Song. Remember that? Google it, man. A singer named Fred Farrell. He just made that record because it's a record with Liedman and Richie Byrack, but of all the songs that Richie wrote and Dave wrote at that time, you know, using that different kind of like polychordal harmony, and like, Fred wrote lyrics to all those songs, and finally, like a couple years ago, he made a record with them. He came in some money, and he even used a picture of my father's, who's a very famous photographer, who was, and like on the cover. Distant Song. It's a great record, and Fred is a great singer, man. You know, he really is. And he's, become friends with him on Facebook, social media, and he's a very religious person, and but Fred is strong as nails, man, and like he's in his 70s now, like me, I'm 68, but like when you communicate with these people, you will find a different kind of strength that doesn't exist today. Forget about it. Forget about it. Okay? It's a whole nother thing, man. And even, there's mentioning names of famous people from New York. There was a drummer there back at this time named Mike Clark. And, he was famous from playing with the Headhunters. But I only mention that because, Mike Clark is a very famous drummer now. But he wrote on Facebook just a couple of days ago, or a week and a half ago, that music from New York is different than music from anywhere else. And if you live in New York, you're expected to play at a certain level in a different way than other people. That's the way it was back then too. Back in 1970's, it was just different, man. And like, people came there from everywhere, and I played with people from everywhere, and like, Detroit, Chicago. I mean, Joe Henderson was from like, Detroit. There were a lot of guys from Chicago, and Chicago had its all own scene there. Like there was a really heavy duty like free music scene there, and then like Philly had its own sound and its own cats, and it's like heavy organ thing, and like every city kind of has its own thing, but New York is like New Orleans, naturally where the thing started in its own way, but New York, and so I agree with what Mike Clark wrote on there, and he said I may be wrong, he said I've been wrong before, and so that, so anyway, like this injury in my head, I was starting to notice it. I was starting to feel it. And I said, what's this? What's going on? It's just like, if you stub your toe, man, like, what happened? What did I do, And so this kind of started bothering me, and like, anyway, now we were on 27th Street, and we had a soundproof room. I mean, the sessions there were like off the charts. I mean, I had a list, this long of people, and every day I would just call people, and really, really heavy duty sessions, and great sessions, man. Ask anybody. There was another room there where musicians would live to help us with the rent, Andrea and me. And the first one who lived there was Ed Schuler, bass player, a great bass player. Then a horn player named Dale Kleps lived there. After Dale, I believe Oliver Peters, who was a great tenor player and flugelhorn player from Germany. And, he came to town, and, he lived there, and he had every three-horn chart written out. And so, we had the opportunity to play all those, Art Blakey charts, that Wayne Shorter wrote, and like, all of that music, and then after Oliver, I think the next person was a piano player from Florida who was blind. He played trumpet also, and I mean, he was on another level. And I used to go with him everywhere, and we used to, because he was blind, take him on the subway, and we used to play. And this is when the Cultural Theater was really at Sessions, Barry Harris's place on 8th Avenue, and then the next guy after him, I believe, was Dave Panici, who's a trombone player from Australia. And Dave Panici, once again, he's just this month, has a big band in Australia, and it's putting on this really big concert and he's advertising it. And Dave was like this unbelievable player. And there was Mike Brecker and Hal Galper at that time wrote these articles about forward motion and about pentatonics and about different stuff, And Dave really took that stuff to heart, and his concept of forward motion and a rhythmic playing, plus he had perfect pitch, and he's just an incredible player, man. And these were the kind of people I was playing with, man. And like, I don't remember how I played back then. I made one record with Stryker, Ralph Amperian, Bruce Williamson, and that was it, I guess. Yeah, that was the only record I made. I don't remember. So anyway, Dave Panici, he's the guy too who made the Buddy Rich tape. He came back from being on the road with Buddy Rich, and he goes, "Hey, Chris, listen to this." Buddy Rich is saying, "Hey, you think you're tough? I'm tough," and telling him off and everything. And like, they used to call Buddy Rich a circus drummer. And also we had a Colonel Sanders tape. He couldn't make a commercial because he was too drunk. Okay, I'm going to get serious for a minute, all right? Buddy Rich, man, I mean, just during the pandemic, I mean, I really listened seriously to some of the things that he played. And I mean, it just blew me away, It wasn't the kind of playing that I really wanted to do, but my concept of drumming. But I have to respect the guy's skill, You have to do that. There are two videos that are the history of jazz drumming on YouTube right now, and they're very, very well done. And I would advise any drummer to look at those. They're narrated by Louis Belson, and Jack DeJohnette and Roy Haynes both, comment and talk about the guys. you know, the different players. And they're just very well done. And historically, there's video of like baby Dodds, and you know, from the very beginning all the way up. Okay, now here we are on 27th Street, you know, going to the Catskills. I'm doing gigs in New Jersey and clubs where I got to stay in the kitchen because they don't let white people in there, but they let me play. I did funk gigs in Newark where black cats would come and meet me at the bus station, walk me in to rehearsals because no white people would go there, man. They'd kill me, you know. But, you know, I played with these funk bands in Newark. Nobody knows that. And, you know, I was good at that. And, like, you know, my brain injury was slowly getting worse and worse. And I was starting to notice it, and I was starting to be kind of withdrawn in a way and being a little weird. And, like, you know, Andrea was like, what's going on, you know? And, you know, she was putting on tap dance concerts and getting great reviews in the New York Times and everything. And, you know, this is during the tap dance revival. There was a famous tap dance club called the Copacetics. Google them, please, so I don't have to talk about it. But, I mean, we worked with them. I played drums with them. Yeah. They called me the president, and like, because I had a white shirt. And, you know, we went on the road and we played at the Village Vanguard, you know. And I've never been around entertainers like that. And I used to go up to the Bronx and hang out with them. And, you know, this is when I was drinking a lot, too. Anyway, so one day Andrea came home and knocked down part of my soundproof room with a sledgehammer. And, you know, so that was the end of that. I moved out and, like, moved into Stryker's Pad on 99th and 3rd. And, like, started driving a cab, you know. And there was something else that happened in New York that I will mention. Was that when I was living on 27th Street, there was a place on 23rd Street. You know, everybody, like in my neighborhood in Chelsea, I'll just show you, like down the street, Dave Samuels and Harvey Schwartz had a loft right down the street, right? I mean, they would hear us playing because it would vibrate off the walls, you know, across the street. Around the corner, Mike Brecker had a loft. Down the street, another drummer, Chip White, had a loft. On 26th Street, Adam Nussbaum and Paul Bloomberg had a loft. On 23rd Street, Joe Lovano and that piano player I mentioned before had a loft. You know, on 25th Street, an alto player named Patrick Brennan and Charles Brackeen had a loft. And then around the corner was the Cultural Center. On 9th Avenue, there was another piano player who had a whole other group of cats and who had a loft, okay? So, I mean, this is just in one area where, you know, every day this stuff was going on, you know. And on 23rd Street, there was a little black bar called the Star Cafe. And this guy who lived in one of the homeless buildings down there said, Chris, let's start a jam session there. So I said, okay. So, you know, we went in there and we started this jam session. The band was Joe Lovano, Dave Stryker, Ralph Imperian or Ed Schuler on bass, and myself. And different cats used to come and sit and do the gig also, like Jack Walrath, John Tank, a tenor player, great tenor player. Dave Lehman did the gig. George Coleman came in there, did it, you know. But every night on Sunday at the Star, I mean, there would be like, you know, the pool table there would be covered with horns, and it'd just be like gold. And, you know, the sessions just were out the door, man. And Miles would come down there to get drugs. And, like, you know, that was a really heavy scene. And Dennis, my friend Dennis, you know, he wanted me to write a documentary and, you know, talk about that also. So anyway, now I got that out of the way. So now I'm living up on 99th and 3rd. That's Spanish Harlem. and driving a cab, and there was a lot of street playing in New York at that time. So we had a really good street band. The bass player played upside down left-hand bass, and Freddie the Freeloader actually would pass a hat for us. There would be 3 tenor players, and we would move around to different places and play, on a regular basis. And I lived in Spanish Harlem for 6 or 7 years. So while I was living there and, going to the Catskills and coming back and doing different gigs here and there, I auditioned in New York with Jack McDuff, because Stryker was playing with them, and I used to go up and play with them. And I auditioned with Horace Silver, which Mike Brecker got me that one. And I auditioned with Bill Evans, but when I got to the audition with Bill Evans at the Vanguard, Philly Joe had gotten the gig, and that was great, because Philly Joe, man, forget about it. Philly Joe was like playing past it, man. He was like playing so good, Go up to the YouTubes and listen to Nardis with Mark Johnson on bass, and Philly Joe, one of the greatest drummers of all time, just sounds unbelievable. Anyway, at this time also like Elvin, Elvin would come into town with the jazz machine. I never saw him with Train. And, they would play at the Vanguard, and I would just sit behind the drums every night, 6 nights a week, and right behind the drums. And so, this was probably 50, 60, 100 times more than that, And Elvin, there was jazz drumming before Elvin Jones, and then Kenny Clark came along and kind of changed it, bebop, thing. And then Elvin, and then the rest of jazz drumming. And there are people like Tony Williams, and other really great drummers, but nobody like Elvin Jones. And that's just the truth, And so when I was 14, Terry Bozzio played me that record, Transition, and I knew that was what I was going to do the rest of my life. It was just unquestionable. So, I still have that record, and that week was a pretty good week for the quartet, They made Sunship in that week, they made Meditations in that week, and anyway, so I got a call when I was living up on there. Well, there was a fire, and the building got burned pretty good, and I had to jump off the roof. It's 2 stories, and the owner always used to turn the heat on and off. So I got kind of pissed after that, because what happened is all the Spanish people moved out, and it turned into a crack house, and so I was living in a crack house at that point, and I just got pissed after a while. I think I would, in the middle of the winter, there'd be no heat, there'd be no water, and I marched down to his office on, it was Broadway, I think, around 11th Street, and I went in there and I said, you know what, I'm going to take you out. I said, I'm going to put you down, man. I said, I'm sorry, man, but what are you doing? Who do you think you are, man? And I said, I'm going to take you out, And he said, I'll give you $10,000 to move out. And I said, give me 20 and I'll move, because I had rent stabilization. He said, all I have is 10,000. So I said, okay. I talked to a friend about it. Next day I went down there, he gave me an envelope with $10,000 in it. At the cab garage, of note, the Chinese guys took me to Chinatown to study, dragon style kung fu. Because you forget, when I was a little kid, I was like an incredible athlete. Well, I still had that, and like, you know, um, like, and then this other guy said, no, man, you shouldn't go down there. You should go study from this guy, William C. Chen. He has a Tai Chi and boxing school, and this guy is really heavy, and you really learn the right shit from him. And like, so I used to go stand outside his school with a beer, and then I finally went in there and I said, I'd like to study. And they said, have you ever studied this? And I said, no. And they said, okay. So I started studying at William C. Chen Tai Chi Chuan Incorporated, and it turns out that I was just really, really good at Tai Chi. I mean, that means I still am. And also really good at boxing. He told me I had won the lottery when it came to Tai Chi. And I became really involved with the school, and also really involved with William. We became good friends. I used to drive around with him in his Cadillac. And, this changed my life because I stopped drinking, and, it was something else, It also took me away from the jazz scene in a way, because, like, I was, I was still doing gigs and sessions and everything, but, I had this other thing that was really important to me. And the school was like a home for me, And that 10 grand I gave to him, and he invested it for me in with a friend. If I ever needed any money, he'd just give it to me. But I made interest, which I paid. That's how I paid, to go to the school. I mean, I was making money driving and everything. So like, I'm going to mention right now that when I was 19 years old, my mom died in a boating accident. I was working at a hotel in the Catskill Mountains, and like that was really a drag. And like, but today, my mom is just still part of me. Just like, like those records over there. She bought those records for me, and like, so she was gone. Nobody loves you like your mother, but she could be driving too and all that bullshit. But my mom was amazing, and I'm not going to talk about my dad that much. My dad was a very good provider, and he was a great photographer. He was very famous. His father was a very famous painter, and but there was some conflict. He had some things going on, and so anyway, like I got a call when I was living in I had to move now. So I moved up to the Bronx, and I lived in the Bronx, and then with the guitar player from the street band. And then I got a call at Fordham University. And then I got a call up there from my best friend who had moved to Florida. He said, there are a lot of gigs down here, so like, why don't you, come down here and play. So, by this time I was completely delusional. My skull was pressing against my brain, and I was in very serious condition. They didn't know that. So I said, okay. So I got all my stuff together, got some more money from William, and went on down there. And they took one look at me and they said, forget it. And they left me in this little room out in the middle of Fort Lauderdale. And there I was, with all my stuff, And so I called up my father, and I flew back to California, you know, and like, you know, like, I came back here and, you know, I got my own place and I bought an organ, another organ, and I had a place to practice and got 2 jobs, worked as a, you know, construction worker, and I also worked as an all-night person in the 90, you know, 9/11, what do they call it? You know, an all-night, like 9/11 or whatever, and like, not 9/11, anyway, you know, like an all-night place. People come in and get beer and stuff. And like, you know, but my brain was just getting worse and worse, and I really didn't know what was happening, you know. And I was completely isolated, and I didn't know anybody out here. And like, you know, I was separated from my family, and like, you know, I said, I gotta figure out what's happening after a while. I got in a little car, so I drove back to New York. And driving across country in 2.5 days with my cat and my stuff. And I mean, I was completely hallucinating the whole time. And like, I don't know how I made it, but I made it, you know. And like, I got to New York. I got a place to live in Williamsburg, at the Williamsburg Music Center. The guy there who's a guitar player in the Count Basie alumni band. And he gave me the top floor and said, look, you can fix this up, you know, but it was all run down, like the sheetrock, you know, was all knocked away. There were just slats on the walls, there was no stove. But I got the organ up there, you know, and started driving the cab. This was right across from the entrance of the Williamsburg Bridge. And I started driving again, and, you know, but no one would get in my cab. I mean, my clothes were all dirty, and like, you know, I mean, you know, I was near death at this point, literally near death, and my car got stolen. And so anyway, I was driving a taxi across 96th Street, and I had this huge seizure, and, you know, I like drove down Park Avenue the wrong way, then across probably 91st Street, one of those streets, to this hospital. And I walked in there and I said, look, there's something wrong here. And I don't know what's going on. So it turns out they had like a mental part of this hospital. It was a famous hospital called Payne Whitney. So the first night they locked me in a cement room. I don't know why, but you know, I mean, I was trying to walk through the walls, things were shooting through the walls, you know. I wrote, I got a piece of paper and a pen, you know, and I wrote, like, to my family, if I die, you know, burn my drums, and, you know. But I was there for about 3 months, and I did sit-ups and push-ups in my room every day, because there was nothing wrong with my mind, my thinking mind, you know, my mind. There was something pressing against my skull, which was causing all this other crazy shit. So I'm feeling all this stuff just like I'm sitting right here, you know, just like when I was, you know, 15 years old and like the baddest cat, you know, within 1,000 miles, you know. And like, but I just had this heavy thing happening. I didn't know what it was, and they didn't know what it was. They misdiagnosed me, gave me the wrong drugs and everything. Anyway, after 3 months, I was strong enough to get out of there, and they wanted me to go to this place in Williamsburg, under the L. It was like an insane asylum is what it was like. And I just told them, at that point in time, I said, you people are crazy, you know. You people misdiagnosed me. You people, you know, locked me in a room. You know, you people, man, you know, did not do right by me. And there's no way in the world that I'm going to stay in this place. You're crazy. I said, you're crazy. Why don't you go stay in there? That's more your place. I was pissed. And I called my dad again. He said, okay. So I came back to California. And I stayed at my family's house for a very short time. They took me to all kinds of doctors. The doctors said, Chris, we don't even know why you're still alive, you know. Your MRI, not MRI, EEG, EKG, all that stuff is like, you know, totally off the hook, man. And, you know, look, you shouldn't be alive, you know. So they gave me all these drugs, and they just sent me on my way, you know. And so my dad and my little brother were yelling and screaming at me. And it was crazy there, and I wanted to knock them out. Even though I was half dead, I still wanted to knock them out. And, yeah, dig that. And so what I did is I moved into a tool shed in somebody's backyard. And this was the beginning of, this was in 1989. And this was the beginning of like, you know, getting better. Driving to that hospital was really the beginning of getting better. But, you know, and I lived there for, you know, maybe 4 or 5 months. I ate all my meals, I did junk food. And then I got a place in an apartment building in the next town over, which was like a big, huge apartment building, 3 tiers, you know. And as a roommate in this one place, and then that didn't work out. The lady, it just didn't work out. So I talked to the owner, and he was a really good cat, this guy. And he goes, I'll give you your own place, but you have to get a roommate to help pay the rent, and I'll give you jobs around here so that you can, you know, have enough money to pay the rent. So it worked out great. The only problem is that the roommates that I got from this place, the Center of Independent Living, were all, you know, crazy. Like, you know, one person locked himself in there, wouldn't leave. Another person came in there with a shotgun, you know, I mean, and we built an alcove in the corner, you know, out of fiberboard, and I just slept there. Still had my drums set up. I couldn't play them because, you know, I couldn't really move. So, you know, but I lived there for quite a while, and, you know, the longer I was there, the better I got it. I learned my Tai Chi forms again, and, you know, like, would, you know, do jobs around there. And I help people. Like, in my building there, next door was like, this guy, he would beat his wife. She would come smashing against the wall at night, you know. Kind of right now I have these really horrible neighbors upstairs, you know, but I just ignore them, you know. And like, I mean, this guy would beat his wife, man, and the next day I would see her, and her face would be all messed up, and I'd say, okay, can I get you some help? You know, let's get some help here. You know, and she wouldn't want to do it, so I called the sheriffs, because I was working at the Civic Center, a very famous building by Frank Lloyd Wright, and there were the sheriffs, they had their office there, and so at lunch, you know, they'd come in there, and I'd, how you doing? You know, and like, they knew what was happening. And so I got the sheriffs to come over there and, you know, get that guy, you know, from beating his wife. And then next door to me, there was like this is why they wanted me to write this book. There was this Mexican guy and his wife, but there was, upstairs, there were these methamphetamine people. And they used to always try to beat up the Mexican guy. And they were sick, crazy. And I wouldn't let them, you know, I'd just stop them, you know. Remember, I was a strong little kid, and I'd already been studying boxing in New York and, you know, everything. And like, you know, I just wouldn't let them do it, you know. And so the Mexican guy was very appreciative of that. And he actually gave me this chair. That was like 30 years ago, man. I still have this chair, you know. And, you know, then a nice lady moved in there. She had a heart of gold, and she was alcoholic. And then she moved down the street, and she worked in the like local, you know, like pharmacy, you know. And then some guy started messing with her, so I went down there. You know, she told me, I went down there and got rid of him. You know, and then her daughter came to me. And this is all in like, a short period of time, you know. Her daughter came to me and, you know, her boyfriend, you know, was like beating on her. And so like, you know, I got her in a place for abused women, and I made a table for her little kid to do her homework, and like, you know, I really helped them out. And like, there was a guy in the next building who was a Vietnamese vet who, he had like, you know, post-traumatic stress. When I came here, I had post-traumatic stress syndrome 3 times worse than coming out of a war, right? But this guy kept wanting to kill himself. And, you know, he would like drink and like, and then he would call me. And so I would, you know, take him to the hospital and, you know, get him straightened out. So, you know, that was kind of like life in that place, you know. But I was still slowly getting better, you know, slowly getting stronger, you know. So like, I got a phone call, and this is from that organ player, Bob McCormick. And he goes, he was living in Florida, and he goes, "Hey Chris, I met this girl down here she lives up there, you know, in Dublin. And like, you should like, go and move in here with her and her husband, man. You know, and she's cool, and you can set up your drums there, and you know, you can play there, and like, you know, like that." So I called them up, and they said, "Yeah, okay, that would work," you know. And so they came in, you know, in a Volkswagen van, and I put all my stuff in there, and like, thanked the guy upstairs who was Jehovah's Witness, who always wanted to turn me into a Jehovah's Witness, but never worked. And I moved out to Dublin. And now, you gotta realize when this guy came here, he had a specially rigged up Volkswagen bus because he had his legs shot off in Vietnam. You know, and I mean, I was cool with that. He was a really good guy, you know. He had all his marbles, you know, unlike, you know, like all these other people. And you know, so we moved out there, and I built a thing, so I had a punching bag out there, and I got a set of my drums. I still couldn't play them because, you know, I was so injured, you know, nerve damage, you know. And this girl used to walk around with a gun in her mouth, and so, you know, there it is again, helping everyone else. But the mailman was actually a really good guy, and he was from Vietnam. He told me, he goes, "Look, I got a room in my house. Rent out this room for me. You know, it's totally cool there." And so I did that, and it was finally like kind of a safe place, a decent place. You know, just this room. And, you know, I mean, it wasn't easy. I'd have to walk to the store to get my food. You know, I was still in bad shape, really bad shape. But, you know, like, I'd make it on my own, you know. And, like, there was a guy who lived there. There was a prison in Dublin, a state prison. And I would, you know, he was just a good guy, man. He was really strong. And, like, he had a really good girlfriend. And I could cook there. And then I got a letter from, you know, the government saying that I had gotten my Section 8 voucher, which meant that, because I was way high on the list because of my injury, and so now I could get my own place. So I came back to Marin and started looking, and this place was advertised, and so I, you know, came here. And there was a little old guy over there by the heater. And it turns out that I had known my whole life. You know, he built a house up by where my family's house was, where I grew up, you know. And like, so he gave me the apartment, and that was like 28 years ago. And, you know, I lived here all this time. And it started out, you know, it was great, you know. And I was walking in the town of San Anselmo, which is the name of the town, and I saw a place called the Yellow Emperor. And for those of you who don't know, the Yellow Emperor was the emperor in China during the Qing Dynasty, I think. And anyway, there's a book called The Yellow Emperor's Treatise on Chinese Medicine. And I went in there because I remember I had studied Tai Chi and I was so good at it and everything. And there was this lady standing there behind the counter. And I mean, she was the most beautiful thing I'd probably seen in years, you know. And like, you know, she just had this thing about her. And you know, it wasn't like Marilyn Monroe, but kind of like that. But also just settled, strong, but just something. I didn't know what it was. She just said, "Come with me." So I went into one of their rooms, you know, and like, we'll ignore that, it's my phone. And, you know, within one treatment, it was like, I was like, where have I been? You know, I felt completely different. So I went and saw her 5 times, and after 5 times, I was like my old self again, you know. And I could play my drums, you know. It was like I was just, you know, healed like, you know, what, 50% compared, I mean, from the trauma, you know. Post-traumatic stress is no joke, and being near death, you know, for months is no joke. And like, you know, going through that experiences that I went through is no joke. And like, you know, being just thrown in the garbage by all your friends is no joke. So, you know, it was no joke. And this is no joke. So, you know, like, I mean, I'd be kind enough to try to explain this to you, you know. All I care is that you listen to me play the drums, man, you know, at this point. That's what I care about. But I'm doing this because hopefully people will get some hope and some good from this, you know. And that's the whole reason, man, you know. I don't want anything else from this. So anyway, you know, after 5 times, you know, but then she moved. She left that place. And she, and so, you know, I lost contact with her. But I was, a hell of a lot better, and I could start practicing, you know, and 2 things happened. I went into the grocery store one day, and the guy next to me said, "Are you a musician?" And I just looked at him. I said, "What?" You know, I mean, you know, how's this guy going to know I'm a musician, right? I don't have any instruments on me, you know. You know, I don't have a sign that says I'm a musician, you know. So anyway, I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, there's a jam session in the next town, and like, you know, you should go there, like, and next week and sit in." And so, like, I went to this place, and 19 Broadway it was called, and you know, I walked in, and these people were playing, all these old folks, kind of, and they were playing the tune "When Lights Are Low." You know, it's a great tune. You know, Miles played it next to Tune Up on one of the 4 albums, Relaxing, Steaming, Cooking, or whatever. And you know, and that was unbelievable for me. I ran to the bandstand as fast as I could. And I said, "Can I please sit in?" And they said, "No." They didn't know me, you know. And so I said, "Okay." So I went and sat in the back, and I went back next week. Next week they let me play. And they were just like, you know, blown away. So like, now and then they gave me the gig. So every Sunday I went there and, you know, played. It was like a jam session. And the same people went there every week, and there were singers, you know. And it was like a family thing. They accepted me like like it's part of their family, like the club owner, you know, he'd take me out to dinner, you know, in the town, and like, you know, one of the guys, um, this guy, Dave Bergman was his name, you know, he played vibes and trumpet and sang, and like, he bought me like, actually that red Ford tone back there that you can't see, and you know, bass drum pedal, and he said, we have the same kind of time, you have black time and I have black time, and I mean, you know, it was great, you know, I was finally on the bandstand playing again, and you know, so that was really good. And then after a couple months, the owner asked me, or maybe longer, if I wanted to bring my own band in there. So I said, okay. So there was one of the people there was really involved with all the newspapers and everything. And so she got all this press. And I got, you know, from friends that I had met here, I had gotten in touch with who were, I had known in New York. I put together this band. It was a really good band. And we played there that first night. It was jam-packed. I mean, the place was overflowed. And it was a total success, man. And so, you know, all the newspaper articles, and this guy named Todd Barkin came there, and he was going to take me down to L.A. and, like, you know, make a record for me at Lucas Films and all that, you know, and, like, you know, but then something happened, like I started having another kind of seizure from playing the drums, you know, being so injured. You know, I would have these muscle cramp seizures. They're called catonic seizures. And just your muscles cramp up, and it's very serious. You can die from those. And it happened like about 15 times, and I almost died, you know, a lot of those times. And so I had to stop playing, and you know, so there I was again, you know, and then around that time I got a call from that doctor. Her name was Pindi Wong, PhD, OMD, licensed acupuncturist, and she said, "How's your situation? How are you doing? You know, I've started my practice, you know, in this other town, and you know, you're more than welcome to come, you know, if you want, and you know, we'll see how you're doing." And I mean, I went up there so fast, and you know, that was over 26 years ago, and I started seeing her, you know, regularly, and man, you know, I did everything she said, and like my health just started getting better immediately, and you know, it was just like before, you know. And then, you know, it evolved into, you know, she taught me about cooking, and, you know, I stopped drinking coffee, I stopped doing everything. I did everything that she said, and so I started getting better. And also at the same time, I got a call to do a little gig up in the same area, and I did this gig, and, you know, it went okay, and the bass player and the piano player were, you know, friends, and they were pretty good. And so we got a couple other little gigs, and then like, you know, the bass player though, she worked in the prison, in San Quentin prison, on death row. And, you know, she didn't practice, and like, you know, so like, she had a big social life. I mean, she was gay, which is kind of weird, but that doesn't matter. I mean, I could give a shit about anything like that. But, you know, she like had a great bass, but she was just not that serious about the music. And also, she was Puerto Rican and from New York, so, you know, she was cool. She's an amazing person, actually. And anyway, she left the group, so now it was me and just a piano player, and, you know, we started practicing, and, you know, when we would have little gigs around this area, you know, we would get my friends from New York to come and play. So, you know, that little group stayed together for like 18 years, and, you know, made 10 CDs. And like, in 1917, it ended. You know, and all that time, I was seeing, you know, Pindi, and, you know, slowly but surely, you getting myself back together. And, you know, um, we would rehearse every week. Me and this piano player, it evolved into an organ duo or organ trio. He had a keyboard and that he used as an organ, or he also played a moog bass. And it wasn't really a jazz group. We played everything. We had soul music, funk music, Tower Power tunes, John Coltrane tunes, everything, and because he was willing to learn it, played, like anything I wanted to bring in. So it was really good. And and we were good friends too. He was a good guy in his own way, and a lot of things happened in this building around that time, like the white supremacist moved in and I had to deal with him, and then another friend of mine, moved in, a lady that I had met with her daughter, trick-or-treating here, She, I got her to move in when there was this empty apartment, and her husband, or boyfriend, would come around, and he thought I was messing around with her. So, he stabbed my heavy bag and cut my double-ended bag and broke my windows and put death threats on the door. None of that bugged me. I mean, this guy was just a punk, And he ended up in crisis and then in jail for murder. And now he's out, I guess, I don't know. And upstairs, the lady there, she was really cool, And I used to really help her out, drive her places and stuff. And she had epilepsy really bad. She used to get grand mal seizures. I mean, what I got was not like that. Not that kind of, it was diagnosed as left temporal lobe epilepsy in Western medicine, but, it was a different kind of seizures. So, anyway, but she was a real alcoholic, and, they were like Harley people, which is totally cool. The Harley Davidson thing is like, is its thing, and they were very respectful for me. I mean, they could have, tried to beat me up and do that and think they were tough and because they were tough, they killed people and everything, I'm not gonna lie, but I was used to all that in New York, and so as time went by, though, she just got worse and worse and worse, and finally, one day, her boyfriend, who would become her caregiver, went up there, and she just died in the apartment. In the last couple of years of living there, she was completely crazy out of her mind, and she would talk to herself all night, and she was just really sick and crazy, and I couldn't get her any help. Nobody gave a shit. That's usually the way it is, man. And so that was really a drag. And she died, and so in 1917, Jazz Roots, that little band, just organically came to an end. There was nothing we could do to keep it together. It had been together long enough, I guess, and so it just ended, And so, I went into the city, San Francisco, started, to sit in, and I thought I'd get gigs immediately, but I don't know, it didn't go that good, and I think it had to do with just the way I was in my head, and I don't know, man. San Francisco ain't New York. I got news for you. That's what that guy was, why I mentioned what that guy said, that drummer Mike Clark guy. New York is different. And this place, I don't know, whatever. So then the pandemic hit, in February. And the other thing I'll mention is that for about 15 years when I got here, I've been advocating and taking care of my older brother who's a schizophrenic, remember? And I went through unbelievable shit with him, like fighting the system. Because, they would like torture him at the places where he was at. They'd give him like weird drugs, and I got super involved with the whole mental health system in Marin County. I knew the head of Health and Human Services. He was good friends with my parents, and I would work with him. And like, you know, when Bush was president, we stopped all kinds of stuff that was going to happen. And you know, I saved my brother's life. I don't know how many times. In the last in the last year, maybe 3 times. You know. So he went from one place to one place called Buckaloo, and they just threw him out. They just said he wasn't well enough to be there, so he went to an elevated care facility, and this place was like totally an insane asylum. The lady who ran it was crazy, and he was actually hospitalized for starvation there. And so I started going there every day and bringing him food. And, you know, his conservator, that means that he was conserved by the state since he was a little kid because of his schizophrenia. My dad did that. And, you know, I just started getting him, I got him a better doctor, you know, better medicine, and, you know, protected him from this facility. He was being abused verbally. He was abused 3 times physically. One time the state actually came and investigated it. That wasn't the first time I had gotten the state involved. And, you know, this place, they covered it up, and, you know, because of that. And then he got pneumonia 4 times in a row because of the health care, which doesn't exist for mentally ill people anymore. And, you know, 4 times in a row in a year, he was homebound. He couldn't leave the place, and he would smoke in his room. And all schizophrenics smoke. It helps with the voices. Schizophrenics hear voices and have delusions. In other words, my brother, his whole life, was hearing voices in his head. To today, he's hearing voices in his head. And so, you know, I was constantly, you know, involved with his care. I got him an outside doctor, you know, all kinds of stuff. And he was just, you know, really sick at that point. And so they wanted to send him away from the smoking in his room. So me and 2 other doctors got him into crisis. Crisis is like where people go who are in a mental state of crisis. And then there's a crisis house. And so he was in the crisis house and he fell. And, you know, naturally, I was the only one who could get him to do anything because he didn't trust anybody else. And my dad had died. And, you know, I got him to go to the hospital, and, you know, there are all these big sheriffs, you know, as usual, you know, the sheriffs and the fire department, the policemen, you know, can't get him to do anything. And so I go there, and, you know, we got him to the hospital. They told me at the hospital they didn't know why he was alive. He was in such bad health. And they, you know, he was there, and I got him, rather than sending him way far away where he would have died again, got pneumonia and died for sure. I got him into a skilled nursing facility here in Marin. This was 5 years ago. And, you know, he started getting better slowly. And, you know, I was visiting him every day and, you know, taking care of him and going in the facility and working with the doctors and everything. And then, after 4 years, he got pneumonia again because he had COPD, which is his lungs were so bad from smoking his whole life. Again, 4 times in a row. And because the facility, you know, just did not take care of him. He'd go to the hospital and come back, and, you know, they wouldn't fix his diet correctly, and so, you know, he would aspirate into his lungs and he would get sick again. And, you know, at one point the head doctor there told me they said he's going to die within 6 months. And so he got pneumonia again, and she didn't even send him to the hospital, so I got him to go to the hospital, and like, you know, he was really sick, and this time, you know, he came back, and I think this time he actually went to the ICU, and but he lived, and so he came back, and I made it very sure that the person in charge of his food didn't give him a normal diet. You know, I mean, I just made sure that they didn't screw up again. And so he got through that, and he lived past the 6 months. And you know, I go see him every day. Still now, you know. Then the pandemic happened, and then the lockdown, and he couldn't get. So now, you know, it's starting to open up a little bit, you know, and so I can visit him outside, which is brand new. But I would just go stand outside the window of his room and bring him, you know, stuff, anything he wanted, because they have something called quality of life, which means that, you know, if somebody's near death, he can have whatever he wants. So they give him whatever he wants, except for liquids, because his heart is so bad, it's only functioning partially. You know, he can only have so many liquids. And so he's doing really good. And, you know, I visit him every day. I didn't go there today, but I was there every day last week, and I'll be there all next week, and I'm taking him out next Tuesday, and this is my brother, and like, he's the strongest person I've ever met, probably, you know, and like, he's my brother. What else can I say? People don't understand that, you know. I just see my brother, you know. And so, that's the other part of my living here, you know. And that pretty much, you know, tells the whole story. I had to stop seeing Pindy in February of last year because I ran out of money. My dad had given me a special needs trust, and I had given her over a lot of money, and I just didn't have any left. So in stopping seeing her after so long, my body just went crazy. So now I've recovered pretty much back from that, and you know, I practice maybe 4 hours a day, and you know, my playing is constantly getting better. You know, my ideas are always evolving, and I really look forward to the pandemic ending and, you know, getting to go out and, you know, play again. And you know, that's basically where things are at, you know. I don't have a lot of money, and you know, I'm pretty much isolated, but that's what it takes, you know. And like, you know, I'm lucky my neighborhood, like last night, and this is where we'll end, in my neighborhood, one of the people down the street, you know, had their birthday. So what did they do? We had a big party with all my friends, all my neighbors, you know. This is Marin County, the richest county in the United States. And all these people are retired, you know, have a lot of money. They're like lawyers, you know, you name it, man, you know. But they accept me, you know, into their, I'm just part of the neighborhood, and, you know, I went to, you know, so I just went to the party, and everyone got drunk and kind of got shit-faced. Not me, though. I don't drink. I haven't had a drink in 35, 40 years. You know, I don't even drink coffee. And like, you know, it was just great, such a great feeling, you know, amongst these people, you know. So it was really nice to be around that. It's really nice to live in a place like that where I can play. Nobody complains. Nobody's ever complained about my playing. People leave things for me on my front step, you know, because they like the drumming so much. And, you know, the only problem I have now, I have this my upstairs neighbors, somehow they came here saying, yeah, we will drumming, yeah, no problem, and they just are who they are, and I accept who they are, and that's all I can say, man. You know, person has a job, and goes to their job, and I don't bother them. You know, they throw things on the floor, whatever. I don't understand their actions, but with people like that, you just ignore them. Otherwise, it's too much trouble. So, in conclusion, this is Pindy's book. Your body is not a car. You can Google her. If you live in California, I would strongly suggest going to see her. Western medicine doesn't work. Chinese medicine works. Believe me, I know from a lifetime of experience. This book is like the catharsis of scales for drummers. And I've been using this book for years. And it's a different language, than like bebop, but you just can, extrapolate what works and what doesn't work, and it's like it gives you, it's incredible. It's like give you ideas that you would never think of before, and so it's extremely good that way because it's not partial anyway. It's not one person telling you. It's just a bunch of figures, four-wave figures, and you just like cause and effect. You play the figure and then you play what you hear after it, and start with it gives you independence, four-way independence. Something interests me. This book is a book by Jack Dempsey. This is an incredible book. There's a lot of stuff here. Boxing and drumming are very related, and there are things in this book that I've learned that really, really help my drumming, and this is one of those priceless treasures that I had with me, since 1985 when I was in Williams School, and never opened it. And once I opened it, it was like, there's all this incredible stuff that helped me. Just goes to show you, around you, there's always incredible information and incredible things, and you just have to be aware and find them, And this book is an example to me, of what a klutz I was not to look at it sooner. If William said that, this is a great book. And so, the only other thing I'll say is that, and I talked to a piano player about this, Armand Donnelly. There's a movie I saw called Stigmata. You know what the stigmata are? These are people who bleed like Jesus. And this whole movie was based on the first gospel of that Jesus actually wrote himself, the living Jesus. And he said, the kingdom of God lives within you and all around you, not in buildings of church and stone. Pick up a piece of wood, it will be there. Move a rock, it will be there. In other words, the power is in you, I don't know, God is an obscure term, I think it just means like, when you work hard enough, then, you kind of get to feel that, like great boxers or great anything, tennis players, anybody. When they work hard enough, what they do begins to represent a whole nother different level of like a higher power in themselves. That's like self-development, you know. You know, that's my expression of, you know, what people think God is, you know. And so, you know, your experience teaches you. Either you want to learn, either you're a good person, or, you know, you're a dark person and a hurtful person. And that makes you a weak person. So, you know, like, I mentioned that only because I found that, you know, I mean, my Dr. Pindi Wong, you know, she's a Buddhist, and so I learned about Buddhism from her. But, you know, like Elvin said when asked what religion he was, he says, I'm a devout musician. So, you know, in no way am I comparing myself to Elvin Jones, but, you know, I believe in music, you know, and thanks if you're still listening to this, and like, good luck, and, you know, go ahead.